Exercise 5. Time to read. Read the story about the Prince of Wales and say who has always been the Prince of Wales. Прочитай історію про принца Уельського і скажи, хто завжди був принцем Уельським. The Prince of Wales, Part 1. Edward I had conquered Wales. The two great Welsh leaders, Llewellyn and his brother David, had been killed, but the Welsh people, though they were beaten, were rebellious. They had no great leader, but there were a number of chieftains, most of whom were jealous of one another. Finally, 3 or 4 of them came to see Edward, who, with his wife Eleanor, was staying at Carnarvon Castle to tell him their complaints. They wanted, they said, to be ruled not by an English king, but by a Prince of Wales, of royal blood, and not speaking English or French. They wanted a prince whose life was good and who had not wronged any man. Well, they were certainly asking a lot, but Edward, after a little thought, told them to ask all the chieftains and their followers to come to Carnarvon Castle in a week's time, and he would give them what they had asked, a Prince of Wales who met all their conditions. So the next week, the great square outside the castle was crowded with excited people, all wondering which of their chieftains Edward had chosen. English soldiers tried to keep the crowd back. One of the Welshmen pushed an English soldier. "You won't be here long," he said. "What do you mean?" asked the soldier. "When we get our Welsh prince, you English soldiers will all be sent back to England." But the soldier seemed pleased with the prospect. He said he was tired of the sight of Welsh mountains and the rain and the fog. Meanwhile, the chieftains wondered who the new ruler was to be. "Of course you know my mother was a distant relative of the Llewellyns," one of them said. "Yes, very distant, about as distant as mine to King Arthur. But it's a pity you took all the trouble to learn English. I have 2,000 men. Once the English go, there is no one in Wales who would be stronger than I," said the third chieftain. "But I haven't forgotten those 50 sheep of mine that you stole. I'll not have a thief for a prince over me." Part 2. The chieftains were ready to quarrel, but at that moment Edward stepped onto the balcony in front of the castle. Behind him, a knight carefully carried Edward's shield. On the shield lay a bundle covered with a blanket. The whole crowd was excited but silent, waiting for Edward to speak. And he began. "Chieftains and people of Wales, you have asked for a prince, and I have promised you one to rule over you, of royal birth." "Yes, yes," they cried in return. "Born in Wales?" "Yes, yes." "And not able to speak a word of English?" "Yes, yes." "And one, moreover, who has wronged no man by word or deed in all his life. If I give you such a prince to rule over you, will you promise to be ruled by him?" "We promise," they answered readily. "Here is your prince," the king said, and turned to the knight behind, lifted the blanket and showed a small boy. "My son, a prince of royal blood, born a week ago in Carnarvon Castle. He speaks no word of English, and he has wronged no man alive. Edward, Prince of Wales." And from that day to this, the eldest son of the King of England has always been the Prince of Wales. Welsh legend. And now across cultures, Wales. Carnarvon Castle, a famous site in a small holiday town on the north-western coast of Wales. And picture to Prince of Wales, title given to the first son of a British king or queen. Prince Charles was given this title in a ceremony at Carnarvon Castle in 1969. And now grammar material. Page 223. Let's look at the part. Деякі дієслова утворюються від прикметників без зміни словоформи. Ну, це вони просто співпадають за написанням. Run – неправильний, to run – шкодити комусь дієслово. Clean – чистий, to clean – чистити. Біти – гіркий, to біти – погіршувати щось. Close – близький, to close – наближатися. Fast – швидкий, to fast – поспішати. І приклад, example. He has wronged no man alive. Ми вчимо ці слова і будемо з вами на наступному уроці слухати ваше читання з перекладом і працювати з цими прикладами.